Good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we have an exciting show. We have Allison Hunt coming back to be on the program. We have a lot of questions for her, and we'll be broadcasting the whole morning live from the Hesselson's studio. So again, thank you for joining us. We've got a lot to cover. Obviously, tonight is the big night, the first GOP presidential debate. The former president, of course, will not be there. A lot of people speculating how that will all go down, who's going to go after who. A lot of the common consensus is that DeSantis will be, will be the one that is probably most attacked. But if you look at the news this morning, Ramaswamy is being questioned by CNN and others for comments he made about 9/11. So there's definitely some concern about his growing fame and rise. So we'll talk about that if we have an opportunity. Again, Allison Hunt's going to join us in a little bit, and I want to spend as much time with her as possible because we've got a lot of questions. She is the deputy mayor of Corning, but she is also running for Steuben County Legislature. So a lot of different things that we can cover. I want to highlight also, tomorrow we'll be joined by Sheriff Allard, Steuben County Sheriff Allard. He'll join us tomorrow. And on Friday, Bruce Whitmarsh, the director of the Chemung County Historic Society. They've got that big event coming up this Saturday, so we want to make sure that we highlight that. Okay, our first story that I want to get to, a New York story, but also essentially a nationwide story coming from Politico. And it's a very fascinating piece, about 5 pages if you can have an opportunity to check it out. But it's states have this big hope for renewable energy, and we've heard so much about it, specifically in New York. But get ready to pay for it. And what this boils down to is the cost, as you see on your screen, $48 billion in projects is set to be funded by consumers. Who's consumers? That's you. For over the next 2 decades. Yes, that's $48 billion. State Senator Mario Matura, a Long Island Republican, being quoted in this piece as saying, "This is bad politics. This is politics that are going to hurt all New Yorkers." We've talked about how the grid is not there, that the technology is not there, but in an attempt to, I don't know if you want to say virtue signal or take the moral high ground, Albany enacted these steps, these measures, protocols to rush this through to show that we are doing the most. New York has statutory mandates calling for 70% renewable electricity by 2030 and a fully zero-emission grid by 2040. That's among the most aggressive targets in all of the country. The grid needs to be greened, while demand for electricity is expected to more than double by 2050, the same year that state law requires emissions to be cut by 85% from 1990 levels. Now, this is concerning many in the political world. Now, remember, it's not about how it affects you necessarily. It's not about the cost on you at a time when we just cannot afford it with inflation and gas prices, et cetera, et cetera. You just can't afford it. That's not what concerns them in Albany. It's the politics of it. That this could hurt Democrats' re-election chances, that this could hurt winning back the House majority for the Democrats. And it says here, upstate Democrats and moderates across the nation are worried about moving too quickly and sparking a backlash against higher costs, saying essentially they believe what they're doing is right and they don't want to scare people away from that, is kind of how Comptroller Tom DiNapoli addressed it, saying it's all just going to get passed along to the ratepayers. That's you and me. At some point, there's a breaking point, and we don't want to lose public support for this agenda. Then don't rush it through. Take your time on it, but this cost is going to be, we're going to be hit up front, essentially, with the cost, and it's going to turn people to from their agenda of green energy, but it's also just, think of this, politicians, it's just going to hurt an already bruised and battered taxpayer, resident, specifically of New York, but throughout the nation. So it's about the backlash against higher costs, which will obviously come, even from moderates, Democrats, people that are just saying we cannot afford it. And we had this story about how people are leaving, Wall Street firms are leaving the city, but it's people are leaving in droves. Public safety, higher costs, higher taxes, you name it. Now, the cost of the state's renewable energy mandates are being paid for almost solely by New York residents and businesses through their electric bills. So it's not bad enough that we're losing residents hand over fist. Now we'll again attack businesses, small and medium and large, which will leave taking jobs with them, taking opportunity with them. Continuing, this from Politico, kind of surprising. With renewable developers asking for higher subsidies to deal with inflation, those costs are expected to increase, while expected savings from the transition takes longer to materialize. So yes, we'll pay up front, and some will never see the benefits of it. Assemblymember Dee Dee Barrett, a Hudson Valley Democrat, said, "I'm very concerned about the costs and the impact on our ratepayers, our constituents." The ratepayers, let's just call it constituents. Let's just call it residents of New York. If you want to call us taxpayers and realize that, we'd appreciate that as well. So it's a very good piece from Politico, and something that I wanted to kind of update you on, since we talk about this subject quite frequently. And I know, and I keep promising it, but we're going to do it probably after Labor Day. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano is going to join me on the program to just talk about the energy policy of New York, just so we can be completely up to date on the topic, as, again, it's something that we'll have to address, something we'll have to face at a time when, and it's not even at a time, it's just in general in New York. It's not as if something just recently happened with the high costs. It's been an ongoing issue for decades. We've got to take our first break. Allison Hunt coming up in just a little bit. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. We are back this morning with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. I forgot to put my contact information up as we started the program this morning. If you have any questions for Allison, or you want to weigh in on the topics, as we already discussed, energy costs for you and me and New York State residents in general, or if you want to, I would love to hear your predictions for the debate tonight. Obviously, that's the major topic in the media, that and former President Trump headed to Georgia tomorrow. So tomorrow is going to be a busy news day. But there's so many opinion pieces on what will happen tonight. It gets a little tedious. I do think this one was particularly funny because a lot of times you'll see people that don't want to see a Republican ever win say what that Republican needs to do to win. And I've always gotten a kind of a kick out of those stories. The sad thing is, many people take their word at it and say, yeah, maybe that's what Republicans should do. Chris Christie was always really good at that. Trump needs to do this. Trump needs to do. And what did I see that he said the other day? I guess there's this new line that Trump is just scared of Chris Christie, and Chris Christie saying it that, well, if he's terrified to debate me, I think that's hardly the case. But Amanda Carpenter from CNN goes on to basically suggest that Trump not being at the debate tonight, without saying it specifically, is a threat to democracy. That this shows you his disdain for our system. How's that? Otherwise, the debate will amount to a coronation for Trump's return to the White House, where he surely will govern with even more contempt for our democracy in his second term. She also said skipping the debate is a way for Trump to quash dissent in the ranks and all these pressing subjects. And she went through some of these subjects. I find that interesting because there's already talks that Biden will not debate Trump if Trump's a nominee. So is that a threat to democracy? Is that him trying to quash questions? Also, we know there has been no indication whatsoever, and I'd be shocked if he did it, that he would debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Marianne Williamson. Is he not open to those debate, a threat to democracy, or him showing his contempt for democracy? I'm trying to kind of figure out the playing field here. Why one thing is a threat to democracy while the other is standard operating procedure. So the Biden campaign communications director, Michael Taylor, was asked about, will the president debate Donald Trump if Donald Trump is a nominee? And he said, quote, "To be honest with you, we haven't really had any substantive conversations about that yet." So already somewhat signaling that the most likely not likely. I mean, if you look at the way that Biden ran his last campaign, very quiet. I'm not saying anything out of school here. The kind of the talking point was that he was doing it from his basement. So it'll be interesting to see if this is another step in that strategy, which is now because they'll say the same thing that media networks are saying about not covering Trump's rallies, that we don't want to give him a platform, meaning the former president. We don't want to give the nominee, if he is a nominee, a platform to spew his, and they'll, whatever hyperbole you can think of that they will use. The Republican National Committee last year, if you recall, voted to no longer take part in debates hosted by the Commission on Presidential Debates, alleging left-wing bias from the historic organizer. And we have seen that. That's why a lot of times people on the right are critical of who ends up moderating the debates or what outlet they're with. The Democrat National Committee is not holding any debates ahead of 2024's primary. So there's the answer. As Biden faces nominal opposition from Democrat challengers Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. So why is it nominal with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. when he's polling around 20%, but we're supposed to think that Chris Christie polling at what, maybe 3%, is a real threat to Trump? Again, just trying to understand the rules as we go along here. I've got to take a short break again. Stay with us. I don't want to run too late because we want to spend as much time with Allison as possible. So stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. Thank you again for joining us. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Allison Hunt coming up in just a little bit, so don't forget to get your last-minute questions in for Allison. She is the deputy mayor here in Corning, but also running for Steuben County Legislature. So that's coming up in just a little bit. We do have another break coming up because I want to play a little catch-up so that we have extra time with Allison. But according to DeSantis's campaign, and this is the campaign spokesperson, Andrew Romeo, saying every candidate on and off the stage will have their knives out for Ron DeSantis because they know this is a two-man race. Now, depending on the state, Ramaswamy is making some moves, but again, this is DeSantis's spokesperson. If DeSantis wasn't the best candidate to beat Joe Biden, Donald Trump wouldn't have spent over $20 million attacking him. Now, some political I don't like the term insiders because I don't believe that's the right word, but, people that are just like you and I, thinking about where tonight's debate heads. Some just happen to have a little more knowledge of the situation, like David Axelrod, who was Obama's advisor. Whatever you think of him, he weighed in on tonight's debate, saying that DeSantis has the most to lose. And I do think that's a good point, because without Trump there, yes, there's going to be a lot of attacks on Trump. But without Trump there, you always want to go for the person that you can get the most points from, right? And in this scenario, it's DeSantis, and it will be Ramaswamy. That's why we've seen a couple of articles in the mainstream media about him, and a comment that he made about 9/11, because they're seeing that there's, obviously many in the media want a Chris Christie in there, or at least to move up. So they've got to get their points where they can, and DeSantis is the only one physically there that these lower tier, not to be rude, but lower tier candidates can go after to hopefully score some points. Now this is from Axelrod, saying that DeSantis has the most to lose, but his camp is talking about the positives ahead of the Milwaukee showdown. For example, a Des Moines Register poll found that 61% of respondents listed DeSantis as either their first or second choice, or are actively considering him, just 2 points behind the frontrunner, Donald Trump. And we saw a lot of that yesterday, a little bit today, that maybe these polls are tighter than you can see with your eyes. it was something like chipped away, and it's only now a 30-point lead from Trump. So it's, well, again, it's that season. It's debate season. So everybody trying to put their own spin on all the numbers, and you'll see that tomorrow in the spin room. Now, we mentioned it yesterday, but Trump's people not allowed to attend the spin room after the debate unless they're invited by media, another media outlet. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out tonight. There's going to be a lot of those side note things to watch for tonight. But we do have to take a break, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. All right. We are back with Frankly Speaking. We're trying. I understand we have a little audio issue, so if you could let me know. And again, Allison, I apologize if I act distracted during our interview because I'm just trying to get the best audio quality, and I can't hear it only from what I'm hearing you say. So I apologize. Can we go back to that question as I look at emails and texts?
Absolutely.
What's the biggest concern from the constituents that you're hearing?
Yeah, it's crime. Crime is certainly the number one issue across the city. We've seen an influx of people coming into the city that are unfortunately homeless. And it seems to be that some of those people either have drug addiction or mental health issues. And when they don't have services where they're living, they seem to wander out into the community. That is what I'm hearing across the board, showing up on people's porches and people's backyards, people not feeling safe.
And, I've noticed it more just anecdotally, through town. And I'm not talking about necessarily public safety in general. You just notice it more, right? And by the way, everybody's watching, it's going to be just Allison. I've got just a camera on you. You're not going to get to see me because everybody tells me this works, okay? Just so you're aware, not to put you on the spot on that.
I won't make any funny faces.
Okay, good. But you've been actually kind of on the forefront on this, because I know the last time we talked, and really from the beginning of your campaign, it has been about public safety and respect and encouraging our law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the issue is that our law enforcement, we talked about this the last time I was on, their hands are tied a little bit with bail reform. And I have been trying to explain that to people, that unfortunately some of our state laws, we really have a catch and release system right now. And so a lot of people that commit crimes, people wonder, well, why are they back on the street the next day, or why are they back in our neighborhood the next day? So there's only so much that we can control here at the city and county level.
Sure.
But there are some things that we can do to address when we bring homeless into our communities, having those wraparound services, addiction services, mental health services, if they're in a domestic violence situation. We should be helping those people where they're at, not just placing them somewhere in our community and expecting them to find their own services,
Exactly.
which will in turn lead them to wander about into the community, into our businesses, onto our front doorsteps. And we're hearing that across the board.
And looking at the numbers that I've seen with Steuben County in general, the homeless numbers are startling, really.
It's
sad. Heartbreaking. It is.
It's very sad. And I don't know if we have come up with a solution, but I can tell you that we are working on things like housing studies to determine the best place to place these folks if they are indeed homeless.
Right.
Where they'll be able to find supportive services. If you don't put somebody, either have somebody on site or very close within walking distance, chances are they're not going to be able to make it there. Our public transportation is not what it should be, and to get up to Bath to get these services is just not practical.
And I know I have Sheriff Allard on the program tomorrow. I'm sure we'll talk about this as well. But just the drug epidemic in general, and in our area specifically, is, again, to use the term, heartbreaking, but it's obviously something we need to address.
Absolutely. And I'll go into a little story. So we've been having a skunk problem throughout the city. It's been
I see one almost every morning.
We have been having, and I posted something about our police department actually takes care of contacting the trapper to set the traps across the city. So I posted something about providing us with the locations, either myself or calling the police department. A couple people responded and said, well, how about the meth houses and all of that? That is obviously the most important issue to me, too. So there's a number of issues, smaller issues here in the city, too, but they're not life-threatening like the ones that we're talking about. So if anybody has information on that type of activity here in the city, please either direct message me so it's not public information, or contact the police department. We want to do everything we can to make sure that we are addressing those
Yeah,
issues.
we all want to address
Yeah.
the drug issue, but that doesn't mean you can't be upset over skunks.
Oh my God. It's a sneaky situation.
It is. I can't believe how many. I was actually talking to someone when I was stopped to get coffee this morning at the gas station. I see skunk almost every morning.
There's quite a
I
few.
don't wanna
I
get
live
on
on the
a
north side.
Okay.
There is definitely
Yeah.
several in my neighborhood. So.
I feel terrified because there'll be joggers. I don't want to get on a tangent, but these joggers, I'm like, are you guys nuts?
Yeah.
It's I'm terrified of skunks. But obviously, drugs, homelessness, a major issue. But something that I think's been kind of a common theme for a long time throughout Corning and all the people I've interviewed throughout the years, it's activities for young people.
Yes. That is one of my top priorities.
Yeah.
People that I've gone to their houses, if you haven't met me, I've left a note
Yeah.
on your door. We do well with activities for children. We miss that, as they call it, tween to young adults.
Sure.
Frame where there's nothing for them to do really here in the community. We need to do better because oftentimes, as we've all been through the teenage years,
Yes.
if you're bored, you're going to find something
You're
to
getting
do,
into trouble.
and
Yeah.
you're going to get into trouble. And that is something that parents of teenagers I've talked to throughout the community, they don't know where to send their kids.
Sure.
If they do send their kids out in the community, there's people sleeping under some of the bridges
Well,
in
sure.
our community right now that potentially have these addiction issues. And so it's a little bit scary. People are saying the city's going in the wrong direction. As the deputy mayor, that's so worrying for me to hear. And I want to do everything I can to address that, not only at the city level, but at the county level.
And I'm sure you've said this in the past, but people should reach out to you if they have ideas, because isn't that the biggest problem to keep
Yeah.
young people busy? No one has the perfect idea.
Correct.
We've thrown a lot of ideas out in the past.
Yeah. And what I would say is some people, sometimes they'll call and they won't see something happen right away. So they'll say, I'm not going to contact you anymore. I'm not going to contact the police department anymore because nothing's happening. What I would say to those people is, I understand your frustration. I want to see things happen right away too. Sure. Sometimes it takes a little while for things to happen. Keep calling, keep pestering. I'm doing the same thing. Right. I can promise you that. I'm like a dog with a bone when it comes to an issue. So I will do everything I can to make sure that your issues are addressed.
Now, I have one other issue that I want to mention, which is marijuana licensing, because that's, I know, been a hot topic. But I do want to go back to when you're talking with constituents, because I know that's such a fascinating process, and because you learn so much about your town and your city that you may not be familiar with. Was there anything else that people ranked high on the list?
Really, the crime and the homelessness were the biggest issues. I've heard things like street parking, how to figure that issue out. A lot of people are getting ticketed that are homeowners, and I actually am going to bring that forward to the city council and see if maybe we can reevaluate how we do the odd even parking and all of that. That seems to be quite a big issue as well.
Within probably both of our lifetimes and way before that, I think that's always been a common topic.
Absolutely.
There's got to
It's
be a
been
better
one
way.
I've heard. We have to have a better solution than we've got. And also code enforcement issues, people that are trying to fix their properties, which is very needed in some areas. They feel like they're being punished sometimes if they're not doing it as quickly as maybe as they can.
Okay.
So that's just, it's been an ongoing issue since I've been on the city council, and oftentimes that's individual. So if you have an issue like that, please contact me and I'll do what I can to help address it.
Okay, I want to take a short break because when we come back, I do want to talk about marijuana licensing and that whole process, and then just kind of go, because I know you're on the program before, but go through some of the who, what, when, where, and why. That's when we come back, so stay with us. We'll be right back. It's just you. It's your show today. See? Yeah, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. Say, for how many technical issues we're having this morning, I still think it's going smooth.
It's going I'm always happy to work out the kinks with you.
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, and you think it's kind of funny because we're trying to do a couple new technical things, and it's funny, you were on the program like the first week or second week, not a problem.
No, well, you know what,
That's how it
things
goes.
happen. It's unplug it, plug it back in. That's my motto.
Cross-
Usually it works.
Cross your fingers, right? We still have a lot to cover, and we were talking about marijuana licensing, and we know that recently there was, of the illegal sticker store, there was a I don't know if you call it bust or a crackdown on it. So what is the update? I don't know if anybody has this answer because there's lawsuit after lawsuit, right? But one more time, what is the deal right now with marijuana licensing?
Sure. So there is a court case that's kind of put everything on hold in regards to new licenses coming out. There are two potential stores, one on Market Street and one, as we know, over at the Leader. We are waiting for the final state regulations to come out. So, of course, the state rolls this all out without any final regulations. Everything was a draft. So we actually really don't have anything to work off of in regards to placement of these stores. There's been concerns both in the residential area where it was potentially going to be placed. There's been concerns on Market Street of where it will be placed because of the influx of people, because of potential smells and all of that type of stuff.
Of course.
People are concerned, and I understand that. So we are kind of in a holding pattern at this point, but I still hear concerns about that. Whenever I'm out knocking, people want to know where they're going to be placed. And, whether they support it or don't support it, I think a lot of people are just concerned about you hear the not in my backyard.
Yeah.
And I don't know those on the council that voted for it. I'm not sure where they anticipated the locations would be.
Yeah.
I personally didn't vote for it. I saw some of the problems, and I was concerned. I didn't want to approve it until the state had final regulations because I thought we were kind of taking a shot in the dark and putting the cart before the horse.
And I think that's been proven.
Yeah. And so now the state has really shown us they don't know what they want to do with this, but we're stuck.
Yeah, and with the recent crackdown, I will say before that, you don't realize, I think a lot of people said, oh, I'm for it, and this will be great for tax. But then if you are around it, like I was working, 8-9 hours a day, it's a whole different world. You don't think of all the unintended consequences of when it was legalized. I know that was an illegal store, but that was not clear at the beginning either.
Correct. They didn't even have they weren't actually allowing us to crack down on those stores
Right.
initially. So unfortunately, they're allowing a little more law enforcement to become involved at the local level now, which we weren't seeing initially. But no, I still have concerns. I would have been of the mindset to review the regulations after they were final.
Yeah.
I think it's always really critical to know what you're voting on. So
Well,
that's
once you
why I
opt
didn't
in-
vote for it in the first place.
Right, and once you opted in, you couldn't opt out.
Correct.
So,
but you could always have opted back in.
Exactly.
So that was my argument to begin with.
Do you think have you heard, as you're knocking on doors, do you think there is a little buyer's remorse on that people, again, were for it and then said, wait, maybe we did rush this?
I think there is a little buyer's remorse. I think people are still somewhat waiting to see how it plays out, too. And I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, sure.
I'm hoping the state comes through, the regulations are clear, we can put these in an area where it's going to have less impact on our children and our communities. So that's my wish as we move through this, but we really don't know at this point.
No, and I think the major concern is, and you touched on the not my backyard, which I totally understand, again, after dealing with it, but I don't know if there will ever be that quote-unquote perfect place to put it.
I don't know if there will be either. I haven't had anybody tell me of the perfect location where somebody isn't upset.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, as you said, as this plays out, and it's almost a new news story every single day. I don't know how people can keep track of it, and the Office of Cannabis Management is, I'm not for bureaucracy. I don't want more bureaucrats, but they're understaffed if they're going to actually
They
crack
are,
down.
and they could operate like they do with alcohol, which I think would make a lot of sense, and a lot of people agree with that, and I'm not sure why they're not implementing the regulations like that.
Yeah, very, very confusing from beginning to end. So let's go back to the kind of the basics now that I think we've got all the kinks worked out. Why did you decide to run for Steuben County Legislature? You're obviously busy. You are the Corning Deputy Mayor. I almost said manager. Corning Deputy Mayor. Why did you decide to run for legislature?
Sure. Well, I've lived in this community for quite a while.
Yeah.
I have been on the council for 8 years now, served as a deputy mayor for the last 2 years. And I think there's a lot of issues that impact the city that really can be addressed at the county level. Obviously, there's things that the state and federal government do, which we don't have a lot of control over. But I think I can be a loud voice and advocate for the city of Corning, especially serving on the council and having the understanding of how the council operates and the needs that we have here at the city level. And then, of course, there's my family.
Of course.
I have a 14-month-old at home, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. I'm going to be raising him here, and I want to have a great community, a safe community for him, a community with resources for him as he grows up. And my husband is a 911 dispatcher here, so he hears the calls that come in related to the crime. He's also a volunteer firefighter over in Painted Post, and so he is really involved as well. And we just want this to be a safe place to live, a great community. It is a great community.
It is.
I can't say it's not a great community. I have loved this community. It has welcomed me. I've lived here my entire adult life. I chose to live here. And I've always felt welcome here. But I have seen changes over the last couple of years, and I want to help fix those issues that people are really feeling on their doorsteps. I got to thank, and I'm sorry to elaborate on this a little bit, but I need to thank Doc Cavallero. Actually put a Facebook post up about a week and a half ago now, talking about what he's experiencing on the north side with people being on his doorstep.
Wow.
And I saw a lot of commentary from that, and so many people are concerned. And we need people that have voices like that in this community to really raise those issues up, because the representatives need to hear it.
And you're right. It is such a great community. And I think that's why when people talk about this and they talk about the changes they've seen, it's out of almost desperation. They want to see, how do we get back to the Corning I remember just even, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Maybe even 2 years ago? Because I don't know if anybody has the answer, because it's really a statewide issue, as you mentioned earlier, with the bail reform and things like that. But we can't just sit back and watch a beautiful place like Corning go away.
I agree. And we can do, at the county level, we can have an impact on where people are housed if they need assistance, and providing them with the resources they need to get that help. If we don't do that, we are failing those people, and we are failing every tax-paying resident in this city.
Right. And I want to clarify some things, because some people may not be aware of this, how legislature vote works. Who can vote for you?
So anybody within the city limits of Corning that is a registered voter. So if you're not registered to vote, please do
Yes,
so.
do so.
It's important. Anybody in the city of Corning, though, that obviously above the age of 18,
Right.
or 18 and above can vote.
Yes. So before we go, how can we help your campaign?
So please reach out to me. I have a Facebook page, Allison Hunt for Corning. I have an Instagram page I just started up. I am not real tech savvy, but we're working on it. Allison Hunt for Corning, also on Instagram. If you go to my Facebook page, it's got my email address and my phone number. I'll need help getting out the word to vote. Reach out to your friends and family. That's really the most critical thing. Share my Facebook posts if you're on, or Instagram posts if you're on social media platforms. I know some people aren't. But get in touch with me if you have ideas. I want to hear your ideas. Please do that. That's critical for me. As your current deputy mayor, that's critical for me, even not in the race. But yeah, just let me know if you want to help. There's going to be some phone calling we can do, some dropping off some literature at people's houses and that type of thing. Putting out a yard sign if you want a yard sign. I'm going to be putting them up soon, so contact me and I'll make sure you get one. By
the way, I saw the flyers at the fair. They're great. They turn out. I really like those.
Yes.
And I would say that people should contact you right now, but they can probably wait. You'll be knocking on their door any day now.
I will be. I'm working my way across the city. I'm out just about every night. So there's a few events here and there. There's a PBA picnic coming up that might keep me from knocking. And Friday night, Bites on Bridge Street by the Gaffer District. I will be there with my family, so I hope to see you there.
Yes, and I will have, in just a little bit, maybe when we come back from break, I'll have the road closures, but that's from 1 to 10 p.m. They've been doing some great things in the Gaffer District in general, of course, but on Bridge Street. I heard about the last event they had, I think Cruising, I can't remember. They said it was a wonderful event.
The Gaffer District, I'm on the board of the Gaffer District, actually. And they are doing some wonderful events. They're trying to mix it up. They're trying to bring more stuff to the north side, which I appreciate as a north side resident. But they always have their wonderful events here on Market Street too, and I've been really, really happy to help with those.
Well, Allison, thanks so much for being on the program. Sorry we had a little technical glitch, but I think it turned out pretty good.
I had a great time, and I look forward to coming back again.
Yeah, we'll have you on soon. All right, stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Sorry about that. You know I get gossiping with everybody off the air. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Thank you to Allison Hunt for joining us for the M.A. Neal Financial Services section of our program. And I've got to say, thank you to everybody who reached out to tell us about the audio issue. I really appreciate that. We're trying to do some new technical things. Obviously the show's been going great, but it's 5-6 months in, and there's just a couple angles that we want to take. And when you have that much, if you've ever seen the studio when you walk by Market Street, it is amazing how much technology we have in this one desk. If you just look at this one desk, albeit very messy, all of our technology is based right here. So you're sometimes, and I don't want to get too technical, but sometimes you are going to get some electronic feedback if you don't handle things properly. So we are working on it, but thank you so much I didn't want the interview to be ruined, and I don't think it was. I think after that first little section, and we learned because of great texts, great emails, I think that really turned it around, and look at this already. 2 thumbs up for Allison. Allison Hunt, what a great interview. She needs to come back for another interview. She will. That was our second time. Her opponent, Joe Tobia, will be on the program next Wednesday, and this is all happening before Labor Day. So we have plenty of time for local races like this, and we will definitely have her on. We have a little more time to talk, and we have the technical glitches worked out. So I do appreciate her taking the time out and giving us a lot of time too, even though she did not sign up for just the camera on her and my voice. But I kind of like that because it's back to the radio days. You don't have to look at me. But I promised I would do this. There is the street closings. As she mentioned, this is coming up on Friday. Here's a street closing, and I will tell you about the event as you see the closing on your screen. So it's called Bites on Bridge Community Night, over on Bridge Street, of course. It's free. It's family friendly. It's for the entirety of the night. These blocks will be closed, so from 1 to 10 p.m. But they're going to have so much fun. Live performances, kids' activities, a power wheel race. Remember they had that before. Food trucks, and on-street vending from our small businesses and other nonprofit organizations. You can find out more. You see on the bottom of your screen, GafferDistrict.com. But they've been doing a great job in the Gaffer District. Just having fun. It almost seems like it's every week they're doing something. Something really fun that people are talking about for weeks after. So I'm glad Allison mentioned that so that we could. I got to get that off the screen. There we go. We're having fun this morning. I kind of like it when this goes to show you live TV. You never know. So I don't know if this came out on camera when we were on earlier when we were having the technical issues, but how cute is that? There's Allison Walker, and there's our friend Jacqueline and Victoria. And if you can tell, the shirts say, I love Frankly Speaking. And on the back, it said, what was it? Littlest fans. Hashtag littlest fans. So that was so cute and made my day when they came in. So I wanted to make sure if that wasn't up on the screen when we first started the program and the interview with Allison, I want to make sure that it was. Okay, what would you like to talk about as we just have a few moments left, and I've taken all my breaks as we worked on the tech issue. So let's get to talking. Let's talk about wrap some things up. So they are going after Ramaswamy ahead of the debate. That is going to be a common theme. I imagine someone brings that up, maybe a Chris Christie, because Ramaswamy's doing very well for someone that was virtually unknown just a few months ago. So you've got to look at, without Trump on the stage, the big dogs that will be attacked the most, DeSantis first and foremost. Well, Trump will be, but he's not there. DeSantis and Ramaswamy, I would think. Now, Larry, only because then if you're one of the lower tier candidates, you have an opportunity to hopefully chip away at some of their points, would be the thought. Now, Larry Elder, talk radio host, but you may not be aware, running for president, he did not make the debate tonight because he did not reach those metrics. He is now suing the RNC. He released a press release yesterday saying, I said from the beginning that it appears the rules of the game were rigged. Little did we know just how much so. For some reason, the establishment leaders at the RNC are afraid of having my voice on the debate stage. Just as I had to fight to successfully be on the ballot in the California recall election, I will fight to be on the debate stage because I fully met all of the requirements to do so. Kellyanne Conway, of course you know that name, Kellyanne Conway. Let's see, I can put it up on the screen there she is. She has a piece of Fox News, an opinion piece of watch for these key things, 6 key things. First, yeah, we have time. I'm going to go through them quick. I know you can read the whole piece for yourself, but we'll go through it quick. First, how will candidates handle the front runner and former president absent from the stage, but hovering over the election and dominating in the national and state polls? Yes, a lot of people, Christie specifically, will be attacking him constantly, but it'll be interesting how Fox News handles it with the questions. Do they want a debate that is all focused on Trump, or do they want kind of a hodgepodge? There's again, one of these side questions that we all have. Number 2, what is each candidate's 5 or 10-point plan to rescue and grow the economy? Good point. This is Kellyanne Conway's opinion of what we should see tonight. Third, can DeSantis survive the expected all-out assault to dislodge him in the number 2 spot and regain traction? And which of the other candidates will have a breakout moment? Yeah, normally there's 1 or 2 breakout moments. Who will have it? A lot of people this peak yesterday predicting it will be Ramaswamy. Fourth, Republicans must be peacocks, not ostriches, on abortion. Given the recent gains for life and the unconscionable extremism of the Democrat position to allow abortion anyone, anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Again, this is Kellyanne Conway if you're just joining us. If you're just joining us, you missed a lot. Fifth, which candidates are willing to tackle issues that tend to appeal more to seniors, women, and youth? like education and healthcare. Education, I think, would be a healthy topic to bring up tonight. Sixth, candidates must bring it on foreign policy. So there you go. That's Kellyanne Conway's position on what should be mentioned or talked about, discussed tonight, and what to look for. We've got so much we're going to be looking for tonight, as I mentioned earlier. Now, do we have, a new piece coming out from the Mirror out of the United Kingdom says that it's now unlikely that Donald Trump will have his mugshot taken during his arrest on Thursday. That's what experts are claiming. Interesting. Because, boy, if that's released, I think that's so detrimental to the country, just at the international level, what that looks like for us. All right, we are out of time. I can't keep rambling on. Thank you again to Allison Hunt for being on the program. And I've got to say, for a couple technical glitches, that's the best darn show with technical glitches in it that perhaps has ever been on TV. Arguably. You just throw arguably on something and it makes it okay to say. Have a great day, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow. As I said, Sheriff Allard will be our guest. If you have any questions, contact me. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. And again, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow morning, starting at 7, for Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I look forward to it already.